In the vast, often turbulent ocean of modern history, there are events that rise like great waves, capturing the world's attention. We see the flash of the breaking crest, we hear the roar, and the names of the people involved become fixed in our minds. But beneath that surface, in the deep, silent currents, move the forces that truly shape the tides. This is the realm of the quiet professional, the world of individuals who perform extraordinary deeds far from the public eye, their stories known only to a select few. Their lives are not measured in headlines, but in missions accomplished, in lives saved, and in a standard of excellence so high it is almost incomprehensible to the outside world. This is the story of one of those men, a man from the silent depths. He was a United States Navy SEAL, but even in that rarefied brotherhood of warriors, he was an anomaly, a leader who seemed to be forged from a different, older archetype. He was a scholar in a warrior's body, an innovator on a battlefield that punished conformity, and a guardian who led not by pointing the way, but by becoming the shield for those he led. His name was Jonas Kelsall. His journey was a quiet, relentless ascent to the absolute pinnacle of the special operations world. It would see him redefine tactics in the crucible of Iraq, earn the respect of the most elite warriors on the planet, and ultimately place him at the center of the single most tragic moment in the history of the Navy SEALs. This is more than a war story. It is a deep dive into a unique philosophy of leadership, a philosophy written not in books, but in sweat, grit, and incredible courage under fire. It is the story of a man who embodied the creed of the silent professional and the profound, enduring legacy he left behind when his watch so suddenly and so tragically came to an end. To fully grasp the arc of Jonas Kelsall's life, we must first understand the seismic shift in the world that defined his career. Before the morning of September 11, 2001, the role of America's Special Operations Forces, or SOF, was potent but often peripheral. Units like the Navy SEALs were surgical instruments used for specific high-stakes missions, counterterrorism, reconnaissance, direct action, but they were not the primary face of American military power. They operated in the shadows of the Cold War, in the jungles of Panama, and the deserts of the First Gulf War, a force held in reserve for the nation's most difficult problems. Then the towers fell. In the smoke and dust of that Tuesday morning, the nature of conflict was redefined. The enemy was no longer a nation-state with armies and borders. It was a shadowy transnational network that thrived in the ungoverned spaces of the world. The response could not be a conventional war of tanks and trenches. It required a new approach, a global war on terror that would be fought by small teams of highly skilled operators. It would be a war of intelligence, of nighttime raids, of manhunting. Overnight, the demand for units like the Navy SEALs exploded. They were no longer a specialized tool. They were the central effort. The entire special operations community was supercharged, given new funding, new authority, and a relentless operational tempo that would have been unimaginable just months before. This new reality demanded an expansion of the force. In 2002, to meet the crushing demand for operators in the U.S. Central Command Theater, which included the burgeoning wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, Naval Special Warfare stood up a new command, SEAL Team 7. This was the world waiting for Jonas Kelsall. It was a world that would consume the next decade of his life, a world that demanded a fusion of extreme physical resilience and sophisticated intellectual agility. The battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan were not simple. They were complex human landscapes, where an operator had to be a fighter one moment, a diplomat the next, and a detective the moment after. The leaders of this new war couldn't be martinets, barking orders from a map table miles away. They had to be on the ground, sharing the risk, processing information in real time, and making life or death decisions that could change the course of a battle in a heartbeat. This era required a new kind of leader, and in Shreveport, Louisiana, one was already in the making. Jonas Kelsall was born on November 8, 1978. Growing up in Shreveport, it became clear early on that he was possessed of a formidable athletic gift. While Louisiana is a state obsessed with football, Jonas found his calling in a different, more solitary arena, the swimming pool. He wasn't just a casual swimmer, he was a devoted competitor. This choice, perhaps subconsciously, was the first step on his path. Competitive swimming is a unique crucible. It is a sport of brutal repetition and monastic discipline. It's the pre-dawn alarms, the scent of chlorine becoming as familiar as the air you breathe, the silent burn in your lungs and muscles as you push through thousands of laps alone with your thoughts. It teaches rhythm, endurance, and a profound comfort with being in the water. More importantly, it forges a mind that can withstand immense discomfort and monotony to achieve a distant goal. It was the perfect, if unintentional, preparation for the ordeal that lay ahead. Immediately after graduating from Caddo Magnet High School in 1996 at the age of 17, he enlisted in the Navy. He had no other ambition, no backup plan. His goal was singular and absolute, to wear the trident of a Navy SEAL. A year later, in 1997, a 19-year-old Jonas Kelsall arrived in Coronado, California, to begin basic underwater demolition/SEAL training. It is impossible to overstate the difficulty of BUD/S. It is a 6-month gauntlet designed with one purpose: to break a man. The first phase is a relentless grind of physical conditioning, running for miles in soft sand, endless calisthenics, and constant harassment from instructors who prey on any sign of weakness. It culminates in Hell Week, 5.5 days of continuous training with a total of perhaps 4 hours of sleep. Candidates are hypothermic, hallucinating, and physically shattered. Most who quit do so during this week. Those who survive move to second phase, the dive phase, where they master combat swimming and scuba skills in the cold Pacific. It's a phase that tests for claustrophobia and the ability to remain calm in a hostile alien environment. Third phase is land warfare, where candidates learn demolitions, reconnaissance, and small unit tactics on San Clemente Island. Throughout the entire process, the water is a constant, cold adversary. To complete this at any age is a mark of distinction. To emerge from this crucible at 19 years old, an age when most young men are navigating their first year of college, speaks to a level of mental toughness and maturity that is profoundly rare. But even then, Jonas's ambition was not satisfied. He knew that the future of warfare belonged to leaders who were not just tough, but also educated. While still serving, he enrolled in the University of Texas at Austin through the Navy's ROTC program. In 2001, he achieved 2 milestones that defined his unique career path. He graduated with a bachelor's degree and was commissioned as an ensign in the United States Navy. This made him a Mustang, a respected term in the Navy for an officer who has prior enlisted service. He now possessed a rare and powerful combination: the hard-won credibility of an enlisted SEAL who had earned his trident in the trenches, and the authority and strategic perspective of a commissioned officer. He understood the world from both sides of the divide, a dual perspective that would make him an exceptionally effective and empathetic leader. When SEAL Team 7 was officially established in 2002, it needed its founding members, the plank owners, who would build the command's culture and reputation from the ground up. Lieutenant Junior Grade Jonas Kelsall, fresh from his commissioning, became one of them. In a command structure built on experience, he was the youngest officer in the new team. This paradox, the plank-owning Mustang who was also the new guy officer, could have been a source of friction. Yet his innate competence and lack of ego dissolved any potential doubts. The older seasoned chief petty officers saw not a boy with officer's bars, but a fellow trident wearer who had paid his dues in full. From 2002 to 2007, SEAL Team 7 was relentlessly deployed to the crucible of the Iraq War. As a platoon officer, Jonas was at the bleeding edge of the fight against the insurgency. The statistics from his service are stark: over 100 direct action combat missions, responsibility for the capture or neutralization of over 120 enemy combatants. But these numbers are a sterile summary of a reality that was anything but. Imagine the operational tempo. A mission wasn't a monthly or weekly event. It was a near nightly reality. It meant gearing up in the suffocating heat, the weight of armor, ammunition, and breaching, tools of familiar burden. It meant climbing into a helicopter, the rhythmic whoomp, whoomp, whoomp of the blades, a soundtrack to the controlled anxiety. It meant fast roping into the blackness of a hostile neighborhood in places like Ramadi or Fallujah, where every window, every doorway could be an ambush. The enemy was smart, ruthless, and intimately familiar with the terrain. It was in this environment that Jonas Kelsall's genius for tactical innovation flourished. He saw that predictability was death. The enemy was adept at planting IEDs on the roads convoys used and setting up ambushes. For his team, it was a punishing ordeal, a forced march at speed in full kit through a hostile country. But for the enemy, it was incomprehensible. Insurgents who had prepared for a fight against a vehicular assault were instead hit from a direction they never thought to guard by a force that seemed to materialize out of the darkness, striking with lethal surprise before melting away again. His award citations refer to his development of asymmetrical and untraditional methods of insertion. This wasn't just jargon, it was a philosophy. It meant studying the enemy, understanding their mindset, and then doing the one thing they would never expect. It was a chess match played in 3 dimensions at high speed with deadly consequences, and Jonas was proving to be a grandmaster. His leadership was forged in these moments. His men saw him not just planning these audacious missions, but leading them from the very front, taking the first and greatest risks. Trust in a SEAL platoon is the ultimate currency, and Jonas was earning it in spades. By 2008, his reputation was undeniable. He was selected for the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or DEVGRU. This is the apex of the Special Operations Pyramid. Formed in the aftermath of the failed Operation Eagle Claw hostage rescue in Iran in 1980, DEVGRU was designed to be the nation's premier counterterrorism and special mission unit. The selection process, known as Green Team, is a grueling evaluation of a candidate's skills, intelligence, and psychological stability, and only the most capable SEALs are chosen. To be selected for DEVGRU and then be made a troop commander was to be recognized as one of the most capable warrior leaders in the entire U.S. military. In 2010, his troop was deployed to Afghanistan. The war here was different from Iraq, a war of mountains and valleys, of tribal complexities, and a deeply entrenched insurgency. It was here, on the night of March 17, 2010, that Jonas Kelsall would face his defining test as a leader. He was leading a composite force on a difficult nighttime raid when his element came under a sudden, ferocious, and well-aimed attack. The night erupted in a storm of muzzle flashes and tracer rounds. Almost immediately, several of his men were hit and wounded. The unit was in a perilous position, pinned down and at risk of being overrun. The standard procedure in such a situation is to break contact, lay down suppressing fire, and withdraw to a safer position to care for the wounded and reorganize. Jonas gave the order for his men to begin pulling back with the casualties, but he did not go with them. In a decision of almost unbelievable courage, he remained in his forward exposed position. As his team moved to safety, he became the sole focus of the enemy's fire. But he wasn't just a static target. He was a conductor of violence. While drawing fire to his own position, he calmly and methodically directed a devastatingly accurate airstrike from an AC-130 gunship onto the enemy forces. He was a one-man anchor, a fulcrum of courage that allowed his entire team to escape. He had willingly made himself the bait in the trap to save his men. For this single act of valor, he was awarded his second Bronze Star Medal with a Combat V. The citation captures the moment, but only the men who were there can truly know the depth of the courage it took. This was the Kelsall model of leadership. Absorb the risk, protect the team, and calmly execute the mission under unimaginable pressure. It was a model that would make him a legend within the community, and it is the model that makes the final chapter of his life so unbearably poignant. The night sky over the Tangi Valley in Afghanistan's Wardak province on August 5, 2011 was moonless. A team of U.S. Army Rangers was engaged in a heavy firefight with a significant Taliban force and was in danger of being overwhelmed. The call went out for the Quick Reaction Force, QRF, a high readiness team designed to rush into the fire and turn the tide. The force that assembled was a roll call of America's Special Operations Elite. It comprised 17 Navy SEALs, all from the prestigious Gold Squadron of DEVGRU, 5 Naval Special Warfare Support personnel, 3 Air Force Special Operators, and a 5-man Army air crew. A military working dog and his handler were also aboard. Lieutenant Commander Jonas Kelsall was the senior SEAL officer on the aircraft, the man in command of the ground force. They boarded a CH-47 Chinook helicopter, call sign Extortion 17. Their mission was straightforward, if dangerous: fly into a hot landing zone, reinforce the Rangers, and destroy the enemy. As the heavy transport helicopter lumbered through the dark valley on its final approach in the pre-dawn hours of August 6th, it passed over a small village. A group of Taliban fighters was waiting. One of them shouldered a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, aimed into the darkness at the sound of the approaching helicopter, and fired. The RPG, a relatively unsophisticated weapon, found its mark with devastating, tragic luck. It struck one of the helicopter's rear rotor blades. The catastrophic damage sent the massive Chinook into a violent, uncontrollable spin. Seconds later, it slammed into the earth and erupted in a colossal fireball. All 38 on board, 30 Americans, 8 Afghans, were killed instantly. The news of the crash sent a shock wave of grief from the mountains of Afghanistan to the corridors of the Pentagon and into the homes of families across America. It was the deadliest single incident for U.S. forces in the entire decade-long war. For the tight-knit naval special warfare community, it was a cataclysm. In a single fiery moment, they had lost a huge portion of a generation of their most experienced, most talented, and most beloved operators. The loss of Jonas Kelsall, a man widely seen as a future admiral and a defining leader of his generation, was a particularly deep and painful blow. He was just 32 years old. The shootdown of Extortion 17, while factually straightforward, is shrouded in the painful fog of what-ifs that accompanies any great tragedy. The controversy surrounding it is not one of conspiracy, but of agonizing tactical and procedural questions that families and analysts have debated ever since. Why were so many elite operators on one aircraft, a concentration of talent that violated the common sense principle of not putting all your eggs in one basket? The answer lies in the brutal logistics of a QRF mission. You go with what is available, and that night, it was one large helicopter. More complex questions persist about the rules of engagement and the specific flight path. Did restrictive rules prevent the helicopters escorting gunships from prepping the LZ by firing on suspected enemy positions before the Chinook arrived? Was a less dangerous flight path available? The loss of the helicopter's black box, which was swept away in a flash flood before it could be recovered, meant that crucial flight data from the final moments was lost forever, creating an information vacuum that has been filled with speculation and grief. While the official investigation concluded it was a tragic confluence of events, a lucky shot in the dark, the scale of the loss ensures it will forever be a painful case study in the brutal fortunes of war. A man's legacy, however, is not confined to the manner of his death. It is defined by the impact of his life, an impact that continues to ripple outward. The legacy of Jonas Kelsall is a powerful and multifaceted one. It lives on through the Jonas B. Kelsall Memorial Fund, founded by his widow, Victoria. The fund is a perfect reflection of his character, dedicated to supporting the naval special warfare community and fostering the principle of others before self. It provides crucial support to Gold Star families, those who have lost a loved one in service, and helps maintain the vital bonds of community that are the backbone of these elite units. It is a living testament to the idea that a warrior's strength is drawn from the support of family and community. His story is also preserved for the public at the Pritzker Military Museum and Library in Chicago, where his photo and story remind visitors of the human being behind the uniform, the unspoken sacrifice made by so many. But perhaps his most significant legacy is the model of leadership he perfected. The Kelsall model is a masterclass in modern leadership that applies as much to a corporate boardroom as it does to a battlefield. It is built on a few core principles: lead from the front and share the risk, build trust, not through command but through competence and character, embrace intellectual curiosity and tactical innovation, and above all, accept absolute responsibility for the well-being of your team. He proved that people will walk through fire for a leader they know would walk through fire for them. In the final analysis, the story of Jonas Kelsall is one of profound achievement shadowed by profound loss. He was a man who seemed destined for the highest levels of command, a brilliant mind, and a courageous heart, who was taken from the world far too soon. But his 32 years were lived with more purpose and impact than most people achieve in a lifetime. He was a son, a husband, a swimmer, a scholar, a Mustang, a plank owner, a warrior, and a leader of immense distinction. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, a quiet place for a quiet professional. His life was not a tragedy, but a triumph of character. He stands as a timeless example of a forgotten ideal, the leader who does not send his people into danger, but who goes first to light the way and absorb the first blow. The helicopter's call sign, Extortion 17, is now a name etched in sorrow, but the name Jonas Kelsall is a legacy etched in valor, a story of a man who stood at the tip of the spear and whose profound echo will resonate for generations to come.